Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but a lot has happened and I thought I would just do a get ready with me and kind of like a life update and share what's been going on, where the hell I've been. So let's jump into it. Okay, so while I'm getting ready, I'm just gonna chat, let you guys know where I've been and what has been going on. So yeah, if you're curious, then let's get into it. So biggest thing, two big things that have happened. I'm a wife now and I'm a mom. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you probably wouldn't know that. Those are probably my two biggest life updates, but a lot goes into the mom part, so let's get into it. So last time you guys saw me, I'm pretty sure I was getting ready to get married. I think I did a vlog like prepping for the wedding. And yeah, we got married on June 1st. I'm gonna insert like pictures and videos as I share things. But yeah, we got married June 1st of last year, so we already passed our 1-year anniversary, which is insane. That was the fastest year of my life. But our wedding was amazing. It was everything we could have wanted and more. Everyone had such a good time. All the hard work and planning really came to life. Me and my mom did all of the decor and did like DIY stuff, and it was so nice to finally see that all pay off. And yeah, it was just a perfect day, everything we wanted and more. So loved that. 2 days after our wedding, we then headed to Italy. So we went to Italy for 16 days. It was like an epic honeymoon, literally perfect. We loved every second. I literally think of that trip once a day. Like, it was the trip of a lifetime. I always say this, but like, nothing's gonna compare to your honeymoon, like vacation wise, because you're freshly married, you're on like cloud nine, you just got a bunch of money from your wedding guests, you know, you're traveling, you're just enjoying life, you don't have any worries. Like, it was such an amazing trip. Loved it. And then came home, and about a week after we came home from our honeymoon, found out I was pregnant. So like, I swear it was like almost 30 days after our wedding, I found out I was pregnant. I wanted kids right away, so like, we both were thrilled, but also like shocked because we did not think it was gonna happen that quickly. Like, I don't know. I just was convinced I was infertile and it wasn't gonna happen. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. So yeah, we told our families and everyone was just so excited, and went through my first trimester. It was hard, but it could have been worse. And found out that we were having a little boy, which we were so excited about. I thought at first it was a girl. Then I had a dream that I had a little boy, and I knew that dream was just the universe telling me it was gonna be a boy, and it was a boy. So yeah, got into my second trimester, was feeling amazing. Like, I actually really loved being pregnant. I got all my energy back in the second trimester. Like, I was feeling good. So yeah, we were so excited. We had planned my baby shower. That was pretty much, for the most part, planned. I was so excited about that because I never had a bridal shower or anything. I didn't want one, so I knew I wanted a baby shower since I never had a bridal shower. And we also planned a baby moon, and I was super excited about that. We were going to Florida for like 5 days. Everything was booked. December 19th comes. I'm a little over 29 weeks pregnant at this point. and I had a client, and you know, we were chatting, talking about the baby, and just, you know, all things baby. She leaves, and after she leaves, I start to feel crampy. And just so you guys know, I am going to go into my birth story in this video. I feel like I can't give a life update without sharing that, because it's a big part of just where the hell I've been. So yeah, birth story is gonna start now. So anyways, my client leaves, I start to feel crampy. I'm like, this is really weird. I've never felt this way before. And then after a little while, the crampiness started to feel more like a contraction. So prior to that, it was like a period cramp, and then it started to feel more intense and then subside. And when it started to feel like that, I was like, you know, I've never had a contraction, but this is what I would think a contraction would be. So I called my mom, because of course you call your mom. And I was like, what do I do? And she's like, you need to call your doctor. I don't like the sound of that. So I call my doctor was not in. So they sent me to an answering service, and I explained what was happening to them, and they're like, okay, another doctor will call you back. So now I'm like super anxious, and I'm waiting for the call. I get the call, and the doctor's like, you know, considering you have 29 weeks, I would go to the hospital, make sure everything's okay. It might be nothing. It could be a number of things. You know, just go. So my husband gets home from work, and now I'm like freaking out. And I tell him, like, this is what the doctor said. He's like, okay. My husband's really good in situations like this. So he was like, okay, like, we're going to get our stuff together and we're going to go. So he drives me to the hospital. We get in there. They immediately hook me up to a monitor. And pretty much right away, they can see that I am having contractions. So they said that they were going to give me this test. And the test, the way they described it, this is how they described it to me, okay? The test determines if I'm going into labor in the next 1 to 2 weeks. That's what they said. So I was like, okay. So yeah, they say, oh, we're going to do this test. And I'm like, okay. And it did come up in conversation, like a cervical check, but basically the nurse was like, oh, that's not necessary. You know, we don't think you need that. So I'm like, okay. They're like, we'll just wait to see what this results is for this test. It's going to take 2 hours because the lab is really backed up. So in the meantime, we're going to give you an IV because you could be dehydrated. The doctor thinks that could be a possibility. That can cause contractions, which I did read that. So I was like, okay, maybe that's what this is. It's just dehydration. So with the monitor, there was a person. So there was my monitor, and then right above my screen, there was someone else. And she said, oh, that's someone in active labor. Like, your screen is this, and then that person's in active labor. So I'm kind of watching and paying attention to this other monitor, and I start to get a little uneasy because her monitor was not that far off and different from my monitor, and they told me she was in active labor. So I'm like, why is our monitors and like our little, I don't know what you call them, but like when it spikes, like when I would have a contraction, I'm like, why are ours looking very similar? You know, like, so that was weird. And every time I would have a contraction, mind you, the pain at this point was probably like a 4 out of 10. I do have a very high pain tolerance, and this scenario made me realize it's a lot higher than I thought. But whenever I would have a contraction, and this number would spike on the screen. And my husband was like, what is that number? And I was like, I have no idea. He's like, oh, I'm gonna look it up. So he looks it up, and basically what he finds is that number like kind of determines if you're in active labor or not. And it was like giving a range. So it was like, if you're in this range, you're not. If you're in this range of numbers, you're probably in active labor. And every time I'd have a contraction, I was in the active labor range. So let's say it was like 40 to 50. Every time I have a contraction, it was like 45, you know? So my husband brought that up and was like, you know, hey, like, I looked this up and this is what it was saying. Like, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I just want to make sure, like, everything's good. And they basically brushed it off and they were like, oh, yeah, like, you're fine. That number is not accurate. So I was like, okay, like, I was in a very vulnerable position. I had never been so vulnerable before because this is my first baby. I've never felt these feelings before and I was not prepared. Mind you guys, I was only 29 weeks. Like, I was supposed to have my whole third trimester to prepare for everything and learn more and figure out the kind of birth that I want. You know, so I was just very vulnerable and I was also very scared. I was trying not to show it, but I was terrified of what was happening. And, you know, my biggest takeaway from all of this, well, one of, if you are a woman and you are pregnant, please do your research and please be your number one advocate, because yes, there are a million amazing nurses and doctors out there, but not all of them have your best interests at heart. And sometimes they kind of will choose to do what's easier, and they'll do things like not give you a cervical check because it's just not necessary. I think, and there were other doctors that agreed with me, that it was necessary. I was 29 weeks. I was experiencing pretty bad contractions, very consistent contractions, and they didn't think it was necessary. And I think it was, and I wish I pushed for it more. But anyway, the doctor ends up saying, oh, the test was negative, so you're not in labor, so we're just gonna send you home. And to be honest, it did not sit right with me. Before I left, the one nurse was super nice, like very, very sweet. And she said to me, actually gave me a hug, and she was like, listen, if things continue and they progress, she was like, go to the hospital, but do not come to this hospital. Mind you, the hospital that we're at was the hospital that I was supposed to deliver at. She was like, don't come to this hospital, go to this hospital, go to this other hospital, because our NICU doesn't take babies before 32 weeks gestational age. She's like, so we wouldn't be able to help your baby the way other hospitals could if you really were in labor. So I was like, okay, noted, not coming back here. So we leave, and honestly at this point, like, I'm starting to just try and convince myself that everything's okay, you're just dehydrated, because that's what they said, and everything's gonna be okay. You're gonna wake up in the morning, everything's gonna be back to normal, and your pregnancy's gonna be good. Mind you, I had a very healthy, easy pregnancy up until this point. And now I'm like, you know what, we're gonna try and get some sleep. And I toss and turn all night. I think I got up to pee like 5 times, but I was not comfortable. I was still having contractions, and I was not comfortable. So I ended up waking up around 7 a.m. and now the pain was way more intense, and my contractions were just very consistent. They were like, I would say at this point, 5 minutes apart, 5 to 7 minutes apart, maybe a little bit closer, and the pain was probably like a 6, 7 out of 10. Then I tell my husband, he's like, you know what, no, you're calling your doctor, you need to explain what happened, because mind you, she wasn't in the day prior. He's like, and see what she says. So I call her, I explain everything, and she's like, one of the first things she asks is, did they check your cervix? Did they do a cervical check to see if you're dilated at all? I said no, and she seemed pretty annoyed about that. She was like, I don't know why they wouldn't have checked you. She's like, I want you to go to our office, and Dr. So-and-so is gonna check your cervix, see if you're dilated, and we will go from there. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I get in the shower, I'm trying to get ready, and now the pain is just getting more and more intense as time goes on, and I'm starting to panic a little bit. I get out of the shower, and now I would say the contractions were like 3 to 4 minutes apart. The pain was way more intense. At this point, I'm crying because I'm terrified of what's about to happen, and I also was in a lot of pain. So we get in the car. I remember my mom called and was like, she was like freaking out. Like, she was like, is everything okay? Like, I'm so nervous. Do you want me to come with you? And I didn't want anyone to freak out. I didn't want to scare anyone. So I was acting like I was way more okay than I actually was. And I remember towards the end of the conversation, like, I kind of looked at my husband because I couldn't even speak because I was in a lot of pain. So we get on the highway, and I was like, you know what, I'm calling my doctor again. So I call her, and I say, I think I should go straight to the hospital. I'm really not feeling well. Like, I'm in a lot of pain, and the contractions are closer together. And she was not happy and was like, no, I want you to go to the doctor's office. I wish I just went with my gut and just went straight to the other hospital that had the better NICU. But I listened to my doctor, and I was like, okay, I'll go to the office. By the time we got to the office, the pain was probably a 7, 8 out of 10. And I could barely walk. I'm starting to feel pressure. We get in there, and this was not like the receptionist's fault, but like they clearly didn't tell like the receptionist, like, hey, this girl is coming in, she's 29 weeks pregnant, and she could very well be in labor, so like speed it up, because she was acting like I was any other patient, and I had to wait in the waiting room, like having these intense contractions. They had me give a urine sample. And I remember in the bathroom, I had a contraction that was so intense. I literally had to hold on to this railing that was on the wall because I was in so much pain. And that's kind of when I knew, like, things are not good. So I get into the room, and the other doctor comes in, and she's basically like, oh, like, I'm sure you're fine. You know, you're so early, like, we're gonna get you checked out. Don't worry, we'll figure this out. We'll figure out what's going on. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't know. I don't think things are good. And she goes to check me. And when I tell you, within 1 second, she went from happy, I'm sure everything's fine, to extremely serious and straight-faced. And she looks at me and she goes, you need to go immediately. You're about to have this baby, you need to go. And I was in pure shock. My husband was like, can't remember if my husband was in the room. I think he was on a phone call right outside the room. I can't remember. But he was like right there, and I just was like, what? What? And I kept repeating, what? And she was like, you're about to have this baby, you need to go. So it turns out I was almost 10 centimeters. And he was literally, she's like, I literally, like, later that day, she said, she's like, I literally felt his head pretty much. So at this point, the closest hospital is a hospital that the nurse told us not to come back to. But we didn't have a choice because they did not think I would have enough time to get to the other hospital, and they didn't want me to have a baby in the car. So we get to the hospital, there's like a team of people and waiting for us, and like, honestly, I had no idea what was about to happen at this point because I knew their NICU couldn't take him, and it was just, there was a million things going through my head, and I didn't know if he was going to be okay, and it was very scary. They end up getting me in the gown. They gave me a steroid shot. The girl was like, listen, this is really gonna hurt. You know, and I literally didn't flinch. The steroid shot was for my son's lungs because they're like, he's gonna be born so early that he needs help right now with his lungs. And I literally didn't flinch at the shot because I was like, if you only knew how I felt the last 24 hours, like this actually, that felt refreshing, that that shot. And not refreshing, but you know what I mean. Like I literally, it was nothing compared to the pain I was feeling. And now they're trying to figure out what to do with me. They did have an ultrasound tech or someone come in to do an ultrasound to see the position that my son was in. And they basically were like, I do remember thinking back, I remember the girl clearly saw that he was like in position, like pretty much like in the birth canal ready to go. And I do kind of remember her looking at someone in the room and just kind of being like kind of giving a face like it's like he's ready. So they immediately put my bed back. So my head was down, my legs were up. So I was like this. And let me tell you, having full-blown contractions in that position every minute where your legs are up and your head's down and you can't move was not fun. It was very uncomfortable. They were like, listen, the plan is to prep you here and then get you in an ambulance to the other hospital so you can have him there. And I was like, okay. Then they realize, my doctor gets there and she realizes, no, there's not enough time to get her to this other hospital. Things are too far along. So then they have a team from the other NICU come for my son with everything they need for him. And now all of these NICU doctors and nurses are coming in my room, introducing themselves, letting them know what they're about to do, how my son is going to be. I remember this one doctor came in, he was very straightforward and he was like, listen, you're very early. He said statistically boys don't do as well as girls when they're preemies. So your son is probably going to struggle with breathing. A lot of times when they're this young, their lungs stick together. So he's probably going to need CPAP. And he was just trying to keep it real with me, which in the moment I was definitely freaking out hearing that. But like, I am glad that he was so straightforward because I didn't know what to expect. And they had me signing papers like mid-contraction. They're like, sign these papers, like if we need to resuscitate your son, like we need your, you know, signature. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is insane. My doctor realizes, like I said, that I was too far along to do anything. So they basically were like, okay, you're gonna have to have this baby like now. So she goes to break my water and before she could even like touch me, my water breaks on its own. And mind you, I'm like this, so my water goes everywhere, up my back, in my hair. It was insane. And she's like, okay, next contraction you need to push. Or I think before that they might have left the room for a minute because I think they were just kind of like all figuring out what the hell to do. And I remember I just had so much pressure and I was like, I think I need to push, I think I need to push. And the crazy thing is 3 days prior to this, I started praying about the type of labor that I want. And I kept saying, I want to get my son out in 3 tries, 3 tries, 2 tries. I kept praying for 3. And when she told me it was time to push, I kept thinking of that. I kept saying, God, I want him to come out easily, 3 tries. And sure enough, in 3 contractions, because you push when you're having a contraction, he came out. And one of the most like heartbreaking parts of this, something that still bothers me to this day, is all I ever wanted was, even if I had to get a cesarean, I just wanted that moment where the baby's laid on your chest. And obviously with him being so early, I knew that wasn't going to be the case. And when I tell you, the second he came out of me, they ripped him away. They held him up like he was like in The Lion King, just so I could see him. And I just wanted to hear him cry. That's it. I just wanted to make sure he could cry and that he was okay. And he started crying. Then I started crying, and my husband was by him because obviously I couldn't be, so my husband was by him. And even though the doctor, like, he was not holding him or touching him or anything, the doctors were getting him set up. And they immediately started hooking him up to CPAP because, oh no, he's starting to wake up. They immediately started hooking him up to CPAP because he was definitely struggling with breathing. He was grunting, which is a sign that he was struggling breathing. So they had him hooked up to CPAP. They were getting him set up in his isolette, which is like the clear thing that has like all of the machines on it, and then you could stick your hands in. And I just remember my mom being right here, and I just kept saying, I was crying, and I kept saying, it's okay, it's okay, he's okay. Like, I just remember I kept repeating that. And I was looking back, you guys, I was definitely in shock of everything that had just happened. Like, it was just so unexpected and so crazy, and never in a million years did I think like this would have happened. Like, it just was never on my radar. Like, having a preemie, going into labor that early, like, it was just never something that I ever thought was going to happen. You just don't go into pregnancy thinking that. And it was just so insane. And so they took him away and were working on him, getting him stable. His oxygen wasn't good. And then they start stitching me up. I did tear. I had a 2nd-degree tear, which is not comfortable. I had to deliver the placenta, which, by the way, that's insane. I could not believe the size of a placenta. I was like, that was in me with a baby? Like, it was just crazy. I did ask, once things settled down for a minute, I was like, can I please meet him? Can I please see him before you guys take him away? And they said, as long as he's stable, we'll bring him in here in his isolette, and you could touch him through the little window. You can't hold him, unfortunately. And luckily they were able to roll him in. Here's footage of that. And looking back, I can tell I was like completely like disassociating and just shocked at what just transpired. And yeah, then they took him away, and I had to stay at the hospital that I was at overnight. And he was taken to the other NICU, and he really had the best care. Like, that NICU was absolutely amazing. And I got to meet him a little over 24 hours later. Unfortunately, I was not able to hold him for the first time until he was 5 days old. But I did get to do that on Christmas Day. He was born December 20th, and on Christmas Day I got to hold him for the first time. So that was the best Christmas gift I could ever ask for. And then I got to do skin to skin when he was like a week old. They were very like cautious with us holding him and stuff, because he had this line in his belly button that I don't know what exactly it was for, but it was, I think it was like to give him nutrients, maybe, I don't know. But they were basically like, if this falls out while you're holding him, like, there's no way to put it back in. And it was in there very shallow, so they're like, it can easily come out, and by holding him and moving him around, it will probably come out. So that's why I wasn't able to hold him, but that was really hard. And yeah, my son stayed in the NICU for 8 weeks. It was the hardest 8 weeks of my life. 10 out of 10 don't recommend having a preemie. But the one thing that kept me going, because I've had a lot of people say, how did you do that? How were you not able to hold your son for that long? Like, I could never. The one thing that kept me going is, yes, it was scary. Yes, it was very unknown. It was so difficult. I mean, leaving your baby in the hospital is one of the hardest things. I cried every day. A lot. But the thing that kept me going is I knew there were babies in that NICU that had it so much worse than he did. yes, his oxygen wasn't great. Yes, he needed help breathing, but like overall, he was healthy. He was just small. I mean, he was 3 pounds, 13 ounces, which actually was big for a preemie. I mean, his one roommate was like 1.5 pounds. It was the smallest baby I've ever seen. But Nolan, my son, Nolan James, that's his name, he was the smallest baby I've ever seen. I've never seen a baby smaller than like 6 pounds, and he was like half of that. So, yeah, it was crazy. But he spent 8 weeks in there, and yeah, I don't know how I got through it, but I did. But he's thriving and he's doing amazing. And my favorite thing in the world is being a mom, and motherhood has been the greatest blessing. And I think my son going through, he's starting to cry. I have to go get him, but my son going through what he went through, and us as parents going through that, helped shape us into better, stronger parents. And for whatever reason, this was meant to be our journey, and I'm just glad that he's doing well. He's 7 months now. With preemies though, they go by their due date, not their birth date. So like in terms of milestones and all that, he's on track with like a 4.5-month-old, even though he's 7 months old. But he's doing well. He got his follow-up appointment the other day, and they were really pleased. So yeah, I'm gonna go grab him, and then I'll come back to like, okay, I'm feeding him a bottle right now. But yeah, he's doing amazing. He is thriving, he's growing, he is doing everything he's supposed to do. We just have to put him in physical therapy to get a little bit stronger, but he's doing amazing. They were very pleased with how he's doing, so I'm super happy about that. I am breastfeeding, so I pump and I breastfeed. That has been a journey. He's very loud when he eats. But yeah, that has been quite the journey. I actually enjoy breastfeeding, and I plan to breastfeed until he's 1, at least. I'm thinking probably like maybe a little bit longer, but yeah, that was definitely a learning curve, having to figure out the whole pumping thing. When he was in the NICU, I had to pump every 2 to 3 hours around the clock to bring milk into the hospital every day, for him to eat. He would eat through, I think they call it an NG tube. It's like a tube that started off in his mouth and then they moved it to his nose, and that's how he would eat. Which that was another thing I was not aware of. They basically teach them how to bottle feed in the NICU. So once he was stable enough, then they started teaching him how to bottle feed, which that was a whole roller coaster in itself. And then once he got home from the hospital, that's when we introduced breastfeeding. But yeah, it's been amazing. I'm so blessed that I get to be his mom, and I am still doing weddings, but right now my priority, my focus is motherhood. And yeah, so that is my life update. This is my life now. Multitasking. Giving a bottle, trying to put on mascara, film a video. You do what you gotta do. Okay. I don't know. I keep getting cut off. So yeah, you guys, that is my update. I hope to create more content. Let me know what you guys want to see. What are people watching nowadays? Because I literally don't even know. To be honest, I was not sure if I wanted to share my birth story. I was not sure if this is something that I was comfortable sharing. It was very difficult for me, and in ways, I hate this word, but in ways it was traumatic, I'll be honest. And I think about it constantly. I think about it on a daily basis. And trust me, I'm good. Like, I think I handled postpartum and am still handling postpartum really well with a very positive outlook. Like, I am really proud of myself, and I think motherhood is something that's been missing in my life, and I feel like I found myself in motherhood. And I know not everyone's postpartum journey looks like that, but regardless of the hand that I was dealt and like how crazy his birth was and him being in the hospital, like, it shaped me into the mom that I am. And for some reason, that was meant to be our journey. And that's why I thought I would share this birth story, because I know when I was going through it, like right after I gave birth and while he was in the NICU, like, I kept finding myself looking up videos on social media, like preemie mom, NICU mom, because I was trying to relate, because I didn't know anyone in my personal life that had ever been through something like that. So if I can, you know, help anyone out that by sharing my story, just letting you know that you're not alone. I guess that was the purpose of me sharing. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that I will be back soon. Let me know what content you want to see. This is all you're gonna see of him, is the back of his head. But yeah, have a great day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.